Ireland's defeat to France in their Six Nations opener was sobering enough on the scoreboard alone. But for Bernard Jackman, the most unsettling aspect lay beneath the surface. The former Ireland hooker and respected analyst believes the 36-14 loss at the Stade de France represented something far more troubling than a bad night at the office. Even though one of Ireland's biggest recent weaknesses quietly improved, in the build-up to the match, there was genuine concern that Ireland's injury-hit front row could be exposed once again. The absence of cornerstone props Tig Furlong and Andrew Porter, coupled with further front row disruptions, had raised fears of a repeat of November's bruising encounter with South Africa, when the Springboks dismantled Ireland at scrum time and imposed themselves physically throughout. The lineout, too, had misfired during the Autumn Nations series, undermining Ireland's ability to generate momentum and control territory. For many observers, those set-piece issues appear to be the most obvious explanation for Ireland's recent struggles against the game's elite. And yet, in Paris, those problems were largely solved, set pieces fixed. Outcome unchanged against France. Ireland delivered one of their most efficient set-piece performances in recent memory. Andy Farrell's side completed the match with a flawless 100% scrum success rate and conceded just a single penalty on France's put-in. At the lineout, Ireland were equally impressive, posting a 94.12% success rate on their own throws that on paper. Those numbers suggested a platform capable of competing with any side in the world. In reality, they counted for little. France ran in 5 tries and dismantled Ireland 36-14, exposing a gulf that Jackman believes cannot be ignored. Writing in the Irish Independent, he argued that Ireland's long-suspected decline has now been brutally confirmed. If the bubble wasn't burst by finishing third in last year's Six Nations, or by the harrowing defeats to the All Blacks and the Springboks in November, then it definitely was after the 24 hours between Thursday night in Paris and Friday night in Limerick, Jackman wrote, referencing Ireland senior and aside defeats. For Jackman, the uncomfortable truth is not that Ireland lost, but how comprehensively they were outplayed despite fixing areas that had previously let them down. A dip, not a disaster, but a real one. Jackman is careful not to frame Ireland's situation as terminal, but he does believe the team is entering a genuine downturn. Comparing Ireland's trajectory to that of South Africa, he highlighted how rare sustained dominance is at test level. What makes the current Springbok side so remarkable is that they have been on top since the 2019 World Cup in Japan and don't look like they are stopping, he wrote. Most teams have peaks and troughs, and we are certainly in or heading into a dip. That assessment is significant coming from a former international forward who understands the cyclical nature of elite rugby. Ireland's recent success, Grand Slam glory, series wins, and a prolonged stay at or near the top of the world rankings may have masked the early signs of decline. Now, however, those warning lights are flashing more brightly. The limits of black and white. Rugby, one of Jackman's most compelling critiques, relates to how Ireland structure their game. He acknowledged that Irish coaches have long sought to make the sport as clear and simplified as possible for players, defining roles, patterns, and decision-making processes to reduce uncertainty. But, according to Jackman, the modern test game simply does not operate that way. The reality is 70% of the game is gray. He explained, in Jackman's view, Ireland currently lack enough players who are comfortable operating in that gray area. Moments where structure breaks down, pictures change instantly, and instinct, creativity, and adaptability become decisive. We need to develop players that are comfortable in the gray and can capitalize in that space or have the tools to get back to black and white quickly, he wrote. The Paris defeat, he argues, was a stark illustration of that deficiency. Ireland executed their set-piece roles efficiently, but once play moved beyond first phase, they struggled to influence the game on their own terms. A harrowing conclusion. What makes the defeat particularly unsettling for Jackman is that the usual scapegoats were absent. Against the Boks, it was the set piece that malfunctioned, and we wrote it off as an outlier, he noted. But the fact that our scrum and lineout performed well in Paris, and we were still hammered, is harrowing. Ireland had first phase ball. They had a platform. They even had a coherent tactical plan. None of it mattered. The issue, Jackman suggests, lies in Ireland's inability to turn those foundations into a genuine attacking threat against elite opposition that thrives in chaos and confrontation. The kicking plan that never ignited Ireland entered the game with a clear plan to lean heavily on contestable kicking. The logic was sound. France's defensive system, masterminded by Shaun Edwards, is built around ferocious line speed, dominant collisions, and collective pressure. They hunt in packs and to kill. Jackman wrote, "B. Why kicking contestably rather than carrying repeatedly into the teeth of the French defense? Ireland hoped to blunt that physical edge while also disrupting France's own attacking rhythm. In theory, well-executed contestables that are regathered can be a devastating source of possession, allowing teams to attack fractured defensive lines that in practice, Ireland never managed to make it work. Contestables that you kick and regather is a lovely possession source to attack from. However, we never really got to see that as we won next to nothing," Jackman observed. Not individual failure. Collective excellence crucially. Jackman rejected the idea that Ireland's aerial shortcomings could be pinned on individual errors. Normally, when a plan backfires, there's a player that's the culprit, he wrote. But to be fair, the majority of Jamison Gibson Park kicks were on the money, and Tommy O'Brien and Jacob Stockdale both got in the air well. Instead, the failures stem from the sheer quality of the French back three. Louis Bielbayri and Theo Adesag, in particular, dominated the aerial exchanges through superior positioning, timing, and technical skill. They couldn't claim the ball back due to brilliant positioning, timing, and skill. Jackman added that IT was a reminder that even well-conceived plans could be rendered ineffective by elite opposition operating at peak efficiency. Where Ireland go from here, Jackman's analysis does not descend into panic or calls for wholesale change, but it does demand honesty. Ireland are no longer ahead of the curve. In fact, against teams like France and South Africa, they are chasing it. Fixing the set piece was necessary, but it was never sufficient. The next phase of Ireland's evolution must focus on developing players who can adapt when structure breaks down, who can create in moments of uncertainty, and who can thrive when the game becomes uncomfortable. Without that, even perfect scrums and lineouts will continue to mask deeper issues rather than solve them. The defeat in Paris, Jackman suggests, was not just another loss. It was a warning, and one Ireland cannot afford to ignore.